Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I have possibly my favorite guest ever, somebody that I know in real life too. And this is Brandi Stupica, and she is going to be talking about so many things related to relationships and her own experience. So, thank you so much, Brandi, for joining me.
You're welcome. This is my pleasure too.
Great. So I know Brandy from graduate school. So we went to UMD together, and I was getting my PhD in clinical psych, and she was getting her PhD in developmental, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And now she has done a complete career overhaul, and she actually does real estate. And that's cool because off the beaten path type of people are my people. But that is not what we're going to be discussing today, although I do like real estate. We are going to be discussing basically what happened in her first marriage. She's now remarried, and it was one of the most extreme versions of betrayal trauma that I have heard about. And she talks about it a lot openly on her TikTok, and then she moved past it and she was able to heal, grow, remarry. And this is relevant, although many people will not have her story. Many people will have a story with, how do you recover after everything changes in your marriage? So, okay, let's just start, Brandy. So give my listeners kind of the bare bones summary of what happened in your first marriage.
So Erin was my college sweetheart. We got married right after I graduated, and then I moved to the University of Maryland. We both moved together. Got my doctorate. Erin got her master's degree. So there's a little hint about where we're going here.
Foreshadowing, everybody. Okay, go
Um,
ahead.
I went on the job market, and you just kind of like they're very specialized. So I applied to like 200 positions and had like 16 phone interviews because I was going to be a professor. So that was the career path I was going on. And little did I know that you have to become a professor to realize that you really hate being a professor, but it requires so schooling. And so my developmental psychology doctorate is in attachment theory, which is how you and I kind of like keep touch.
Yes, yes.
So it's super fun. It's super useful. But I do remember we were TAs together in an intro psych class, is how we met.
Yeah, what's his name? Capo, right?
Capo, yeah, who still
Yes.
follows me on social media, and he just like his collar had to have been blown off the day that I was like, guess what?
Well, yeah, but yeah, he's a nice guy. He's posting his World War II father pictures, and then in comes your story from a hard left from the sake.
For sure.
Okay, so anywho, so then things seemed from the very little that I interacted with you seemed fairly normal, and seemed happy. Seemed like you were happy in your relationship. When did things diverge for you?
Well, I guess my TikTok really is just this long, drawn out process of me looking back and being like, it never really was that great. The
Yeah.
sex specifically, and this is where you and I also kept connecting with each other. And I was like stalking you too while you started posting sex stuff. It was
We did a
disastrous.
guest post. You remember that?
Yeah, yeah. And I had to do all of that stuff just to get my husband to fuck me. It was
Yeah.
it was traumatizing. I don't know. Like you and I are going to have probably for like academic research purposes, but I include the way that like my husband came out later to me after we separated as asexual. Whether or not that's true, I don't know because it doesn't match anything that people with asexuality say. So like there was responsiveness. It was real. I don't know. I can't explain. I want to over explain it. That's my defense mechanism, but I can't. So anyway, I mean, we took us all around in a circle here, but like I got my doctorate. We moved to Alma. I thought I was happy. Things were okay enough. My husband was somebody that I selected because so I came from a family of like neglect and abuse, and I wanted the exact opposite of it. So I picked consciously somebody who had a bachelor's degree, had a stable enough family, like his parents were still together. He still spoke to his family. My family was just fraught with like we're not speaking right now, and then we are speaking with each other, and
A
everything
lot
was
of
difficult.
volatility.
Yeah, and I just wanted something that was
Drama.
stable. And at the time when I was 22 and I was making these decisions and I was so
Yeah.
grown up, it felt like the right thing to do. But what I ended up picking was maybe the most dismissive avoidant, which is so ironic because I study attachment theory. You'd think I'd have been able to see it. But I tend to be on the anxious side when provoked. So you
Right.
can elicit a little bit more emotionality out of
But can
a
I
dismissive.
just ask you, just bracket that for a second? Am I wrong that I remember nothing? I mean, maybe it's different in your program, but we learned nothing about that attachment style goes into adulthood. Maybe there's one sentence, maybe, but we did not drill into that. The baby that acts overly independent and like he doesn't care for whatever reasons, which we did go into, will turn into a grown-ass man that does that or a woman. We did you do that? In
Yeah,
your
we did.
view?
So that was what I spent
Okay.
all of my time doing. And we even specialized in particular age groups. So when I got into my doctorate program, I kept getting pushed to like, what do you want to do? Do you want to do babies? Do you want to do toddlers? Do you want to do this? And ended up doing sort of like that early childhood 6 to 7 year old thing, but then also some romantic relationship stuff because I did psychophysiology. Now, the research obviously is it's convincing, but not huge. So there's a lot of change from infancy to adulthood. And then, excuse me, there are lots of opportunities for plasticity, basically. So, yes, if the system is set up to maintain itself, so if you are secure, you're more likely to stay secure because you're going to keep selecting secure shit. Now, the insecure people, they're going to
The
keep
opposite.
selecting insecure shit. So that's going to keep
Yeah.
things going. But therapy, really close friendships, sometimes religious experiences, though like, I don't want to talk about that mostly because it's like,
I'll have to have you back
it,
on the show. It sounds promising.
it's the people in the religious community, I think, that are actually doing the changes in
Well, it's
attachment
because it's the
versus.
unconditional love and reparenting, I would imagine, right?
Yes, and priests and like really good priests. So speaking as a Roman Catholic, like be cautious. But there's like pastors and people like that that can really provide that like they're counselors
Unconditional.
really. They're
Right.
like armchair psychologists with maybe some of them are actual counselors. But anyway, there's that.
Well, I know some
And
of
then
us go for in-laws. Some of the young preoccupied attachment, young 20s woman also idealizes the potential in-laws as a reparenting experience.
so put a
We,
pin in that because I could have a whole hour with you on how I made a really bad first marriage decision based on very much wanting to have a mom and a dad who loved me and supported me. And that dream was immediately dashed after we put down about $10,000 of deposits. There was and there, I think there's a TikTok in there about that too, where I called them once and I was like, "Hey, mom," and they were like, "Who is this?" And I was like, do you have
Aw,
other
that's
daughter-in-laws?
sad.
Fuck you guys. So then I never, I
Aw.
just like
Well, because
pulled
you were
way
trying to
back.
do that traditional thing.
I was, yeah. And I converted to Roman Catholicism for this family. And I
Wow.
really gave up and when you're so young, like I was 22 when I got married, you really don't know who you are to begin with. And then you get married and give away whatever you had at that point to fit in a family unit and be loved and be part of
Yeah.
something that you bought into. By the time you get out of it, you're looking at the ashes that are surrounding you, and you're like, well, what is there to even take out of this? So that's like such a tower moment to use like astrology or like tarot cards, but it's huge. I'm sorry, I
So you
feel like
don't
I've
talk to them at all, right?
no, Marie can go fuck herself. I really hate her. And which
Yeah.
is funny because I think that my ex-father-in-law is an actual diagnosable narcissist in my unclinical opinion, but he at least has a personality and he wants people to like him, so he's kind enough.
Yeah.
Marie is an extraordinarily traumatized, dismissive avoidant who, like, you meet her and she's like, and then she
She
gets
can't
anxious
even
and she starts
interact.
trying to control everybody instead of like seeing it as an internal problem that she needs to address. And Erin is the same way. So that was my experience with Aaron. I was a professor, I was doing a good job, I was raising my family, but nobody was having sex with me, and I was begging and I was crying, and my weight fluctuated. You'll think this is interesting. It got so deep inside of me that I would sleep eat 2,000 calories while I was sleeping. So I don't have many
Wow.
memories of, like, I'd eat an entire bunch of bananas. So I'd wake up and 12 bananas were gone. We had to start wrapping.
Well, Freud would really have a field day with that specific example, Brandy.
You can't imagine how many psychiatrists, medical doctors, therapists I went through being like, I'm doing this thing. I'm batshit crazy. Please help. And nobody thought to ask, is
How's your
your husband
relationship?
withholding all sexual intimacy?
So wait, when did that start?
Our sex life was what I would call pretty normal until after we had Frankie. And I didn't notice that it had really declined because I was in the throes of, well, even during pregnancy, it was normal. So when I get pregnant, I get a very increased sex drive. And Aaron was like more than happy to, but Dennis, don't listen to this part. More than happy to provide the stimulation that I needed. So to me, this asexuality thing, I think back to those moments and I'm like, that's so
He's
fucking.
not saying he's asexual anymore, right?
Yes, yes.
Now,
And raises our
as
kids.
a as a woman, he is.
Yeah. So Aaron transitioned. I'll just jump ahead to the.
Yeah, let's just jump ahead, then we'll go back and fill in.
So the sex was normal. I had Frankie. We we went back to having sex as soon as you could have sex after you're allowed to when you had kids, and it seemed fine. And it kind of started to decline like a year into Frankie, but then like 6 months after that, Aaron and I had sex like one time in a year, and that's the one time I could have gotten pregnant with Magda.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't know what happened in that time period, but it got bad, bad. So then I had Magda, and I just couldn't get my husband to fuck me anymore. And I started to sleep eat. I would wake up with like chocolate chip cookies stuck to my back. So I'm very skilled at getting like food stains out of sheets to this day. We were wrapping the refrigerator with like padlocks so that like we were Googling how do you keep bears out of your pantry, and literally like that's how bad I was. My weight fluctuated from like 120 pounds to 220 pounds. I left the
Wow.
hospital with Magda at 240. And it was a struggle to get back down to fighting weight after that because I was suppressing my sexual urges with a different, basic biological need. I was just eating them away.
Did
And
you
then
confront him and say, why aren't we having sex?
all the time, it was the biggest problem that we had. So then Aaron started doing this like, oh, well, if you emptied the dishwasher more, then I would be less stressed out. And it's so wild for me to listen to you on your podcast and read your articles where it's like wives doing that mostly, which I understand. But like I'm husband in this situation who's not getting
Yes.
sex because it's like, oh, you don't help around the house. That which was bullshit, by the way. We were both working full time. I was nursing two kids. I was helping. I just have ADHD and I do it different. And if there's two ways to do things, there's Aaron's way and the wrong way. I just never knew how to do everything Aaron's way. And after a while, when Aaron started to stop sleeping with me, I started growing a backbone in a way, but it was also just very chaotic within me at the time too, um, because my sense of consistency I shook it up myself more or less because when you start being non-compliant, then what are you left with? But I also never wanted to leave my marriage. My plan all along was to wait for, I think like many moms, was to wait until my last kid went to college. And then I was going to put a tiny home as far away from the main house as possible and live in that when I had to be at my house, like for when my kids came back home for Christmas and stuff like that. And
You're
then
so classic, and I'm not dissimilar. I feel like there's like a personality type of women that try to just like hack every problem and say like, what are the creative outside the box solutions that I could deal with like something deeply dysfunctional, like in all of these, yeah. Very well. I mean, it's maybe who gets a doctorate in psychology, I would imagine.
Well, I'll tell you, to circle back to that, that's why I got my doctorate was because I just didn't, I felt so messed up. I wasn't sure that there was any other way to fix myself. And I think I was kind of right. It's a recreational doctorate to this, like at this point in my life, but I never regret getting it because the amount of growth and knowledge and skills that I have that my kids have just blossomed as a result of. And, um, it's made, finding a healthy, normal relationship a little bit easier in the end. But anyway, so I like Aaron stopped having sex with me, and then my kids were like 3 and 6, and COVID happened, and I was on sabbatical, and I was working through this problem with Aaron of like, I really don't want to go back to work. I hate it there. It was a really abusive, toxic environment at that particular place. And the ADHD in me had kind of come to a head, and I didn't fit well into academia, especially in a conservative academic situation. Like I'm not very
What's a
conservative.
conservative academic situation? I didn't even know there was a conservative academic situation.
But I'm just going to say it for what it is. The administration and the board is full of polite Republicans, which is just like very
Where you
not,
were at and wherever
yeah.
that was.
It's still in the same town. So the Alma College is full of board members who are actively registered voting Republicans. So they
So it was a
invited,
different thing for you.
yeah, so there was a time where I knew I wasn't a right fit, and this is also some foreshadowing. There was a guy that came to campus who was a neurosurgeon who was adamant that like there's no such thing as being transgender, and they invited this man to campus because he was a political candidate, and they promised he's only going to talk about neuroscience, and we were like, but he's literally running for like state senate, so he's going to talk about this politicized issue. So I wrote an op-ed piece or something that was on the internet that was like, you can't bring these people to campus because these young people who are thinking about transitioning are going to feel like they can't come out of the closet. They're going to be surrounded by people who
It's great that you have that on the record as a staunch advocate of being trans because of,
somebody had
then
my fucking back here.
yeah, he can't he can't ever say that it was that you were not supportive of that, you
Oh,
know?
but they can. Yes, they can. And Aaron does to this day, calls me and my kids transphobic. But it's really just a situation where if we do something that Aaron doesn't like we have to do what Aaron says or we're transphobic. And it's just like, okay, you're like the word used to have meaning in our family, and now it's just like it's a running joke now. Me and the kids sometimes will just be like, oh, that's transphobic. And it's just because like the garbage bag busted out the bottom. Just for us as a way to like get through the trauma of being called transphobic when there's no real reason for it.
Okay, so
So anyway,
2020, he's not trans yet. He's
not trans yet.
asexual though, you
I'm
said?
home.
Or we don't
Is
know. He just won't have
practicing as
sex with you.
one. My
Not practicing as well.
was without my consent practicing as somebody who was asexual. Now, there was erectile dysfunction and stuff like that, and there were some pills involved, and we managed through that. And otherwise, affection was normal, like hugs, kisses, that kind of stuff. We always slept in the same bed, but after
But
a
you must have
while,
felt there was such an elephant in the room.
for sure. And I didn't want to sleep in the same room as Aaron anymore, but Aaron was always the one that had their way with everything. So I had to sleep in that bed. And I think that's why I started sleep eating. And at around the same time, you could just scroll endlessly on your phone. So that's how TikTok scrolling kind of started taking over. I started using that as a way to make
So you were
distance
just
between.
completely dissociating from it.
Absolutely was not embodied in any way, shape, or form. And that's why I'm saying the whole experience was absolutely traumatizing. So I have to leave my identity as a professor, and I'm working through this with Aaron because we need money. And we agree that we'll live off of Aaron's income while I reestablish myself in real estate development. So we bought 2 commercial properties, and I cashed out my retirement and I put my money into those buildings, and we were going to get loans together to rehab them and turn those into passive income and do property management basically. And I left my job, and then Aaron said, didn't even bother to come out to me, honestly. Like there were a couple of weird little things. Like Aaron started wearing makeup for Zoom meetings because it was COVID and everything was shut down. And I didn't think anything of it because I'm very liberal. I just was like, oh, well, like people on sports networks wear freaking makeup on TV. Like, but sis, listen, you're not doing it right. Let me help you. You need a little help with like blush placement. And I was like, and if you feel like you look pale, we need to use this bronzer. And we had the same skin color, so we were just basically using the same makeup. But Erin wasn't leaving the house in it and was like washing it off right away. So I didn't think anything of it. And then like one day came out of I had a drawer full of things that I had sized down from after pregnancy. Erin came out in a sweetheart neckline yellow like peplum dress wearing it and was like, "What do you think?" And I could tell that the answer was really, really important. And I just paused but I didn't want to lie. And I was like, "I think you look better in men's clothes," like with a question mark at the end of it. And I could tell that that answer was devastating to Erin. But there was no fucking way I was digging deeper into that. I had enough shit going on. Like I just put in notice at my job.
So I would say that would be like a wow classic, like don't, please don't do this, like like the monkeys that are like the hands over the eyes, the ears. You were like, please God, don't let this turn into something right now that I have to blow up my life over.
Somebody inside of me, there was a version of me that definitely protected me from it, but there was also there's an observer inside of me. So we're going to use some internal family systems language for a moment. There was an observer inside of me that was like, I'm writing that shit down. We are remembering that shit. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, she's the one providing that information where it was like, this is important. We're not dealing with it right now, but that's going on the shelf and we're not going to forget it. So it never came up again. And Aaron and I had this pattern of an avoidant, anxious, like pursuer, distancer kind of thing, where Aaron would be what I called weird. And then I would be like, you need to go to therapy or I'm going to leave you. So that kept being a theme in our 17-year relationship. We were married for 15 years before we ended up getting divorced. And I think it was our 14th year of marriage that this whole thing kind of came out with the only those two signs right there, basically. And I was like, I got to a moment where I was like, it was right before my birthday. I was like, you're being fucking weird again. What's going on? And Aaron was like, and this is what Marie does too. So it's like having Marie telling me she's coming out in my room with me. I'm in the bathroom with Aaron. I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are you being weird? You you just started seeing a therapist. Are you not making any progress? Because Erin also had this pattern of going to therapy and not making any progress because she was just sort of mailing it in and trying to get me off of her back. So she saw a hypnotherapist at one point. It was so desperate. Um, we went to a therapist for the sex stuff when we were at the University of Maryland. They were like right across the street from the campus, and she brought me in and she tried to do like old-fashioned sex therapy with us. And I was like, I don't think you understand at all. And she tried to make it seem like maybe we had a lot of conflict in our marriage over money. And I was like, I don't even make any. So why would like what the fuck are you talking about? So that didn't last long. So Erin had been through like maybe four therapists and had gotten one on her own. And we had this therapy room upstairs because it was COVID. And this was a weird moment that happened a couple months before that. We were talking and I was like, "Oh, you can hear something in the therapy room." And Aaron went, "Can you hear me when I'm in therapy?" Like, and I was like, "No, are you okay?" And Aaron was like, "Yeah, it's fine, but you can't hear me." And I was like, no, nobody can hear the things that you're saying. And I was like, that's fucking weird because when I'm in therapy, what I like doing is like summarizing the after therapy experience. I do this to this day with Dennis. It's like, he was like, what, you do your weekly check-in and like a couple weeks into dating, I was like, oh, I have psychotherapy. And he's like, oh, how was it? And then I tell him, and then we connect over it. And because that's what fucking normal people do,
Yeah,
but
well,
that's not what
that.
Aaron did.
So when do you think he started, or I guess, well, anyway,
It was
get
that
to
therapist.
to the moment.
I will. I'm
Right.
sorry. This is okay, so we're in the bathroom and Aaron's not telling me anything. And I look at Aaron and those fucking moments that I just told you about, the makeup and the dress and the you can't hear what I'm saying in therapy. And that observer was like, your husband's a fucking woman. And I looked at Aaron and I said, I feel like you're about to tell me you're a woman. And Aaron went, and my heart fell out of my fucking chest. And another part of me left and was like, you're going to be so much funnier after this. So I'm like dying, but just like at my lowest moment. My dissociative like defense mechanisms there's not one left at that point. I can't anymore. And
And so wait, you were married with two kids, you were married for 14 years, and he just said this. And did he then say, and I've known this since X time, or was
nope,
it
still kept not saying anything. I had to keep asking all of the questions. So this is just so infuriating to me to this day. I was like, so you're a woman. And Aaron was like, and I was like, when were you going to tell me? And Aaron was like, soon. And I was like, what exactly? Like, operationalize that for me. But now the scientist in me, the observer has taken over and is like managing a situation and is like, we're going to get to the fucking bottom of this. Apparently Aaron had written me a letter 2 months before that the therapist had like maybe suggested that she write. I still have it to this day. It's like the saddest fucking piece of paper I have where Aaron's like, "Oh, I knew since I was like 8 and I'm sorry, but the I'm sorry is like the shittiest I'm sorry in the world." Um, and I looked at Aaron and I was like, well, obviously we need to talk about this more, but we have to go to CrossFit at 5:30.
funny, man?
We have to get the kids to bed. So we'll talk about this after bed. And dude, we might have spent an hour and a half talking about it. The kids went to bed. I cried. Aaron was kind of like on the opposite side of the couch. I read the letter. I was mad. And then I just dissociated my way out of it. There were a big effective leaks after that, a couple of times where I just like broke down. I feel horrible about this. Like my kids were always around because Aaron was dismissive avoidant and the kids came between us. I didn't know that. Samantha, if you had been around to tell me that, I would have left earlier. But that's so I did kids. I did developmental psychology, as we don't
Right.
usually do romantic relationships. So
That's what
you,
I'm saying. We didn't ever hear. This is all stuff that I learned after graduate school. I didn't know anything about it. I really like you know who learns about this stuff? The LMFTs and the LCSWs and the LPCs. They all learn this stuff. We don't in the PhDs. That's why I think it's so crazy when people say, I want a psychologist because, you have more training. I'm like, I have more training in fucking chi-square tests, I don't have more
Mhm.
training in clinical work. They're trying to get you not to do clinical work so that you can focus on research. So yeah,
Yeah,
same,
yeah.
same. I didn't hear about pursuer distance or any of that stuff till I was like out of graduate school.
Yeah, so that's my perspective on it is if you can imagine, I wouldn't have seen any of that shit in my marriage relationship because I didn't have any clinical training necessarily on what those things look like in adulthood. And I was living inside of it. I currently am a subject matter expert on how to figure out if any particular person as an adult is dismissive avoidant. Send me fucking screenshots. I love that shit. But
Yes.
it's
Most
like,
most of us women who like are over functioning and the as young women marry the dismissive avoidant. They don't all get the guy who says he's a woman, so you win the
yeah.
prize on that for the straight for one of the most unusual situations. So then at what point did you realize that this was something he was slow rolling out apparently or and had what is the current status? How long did he know and not told
Aaron
you?
came out at our close friends on my birthday party.
Oh,
We
that's
made like a
nice.
pride cake, layered pride cake, and we were like, Aaron's a woman, and my friends were like, was that real the next day? And I was like, yeah, but I was still pretending like I was going to be like this super supportive, like alternative
Um,
family, and we were going to keep our shit together. But Aaron, and there was this, what do you guys call it, where there is like
empathic
in
rupture.
we had
Oh,
one of those, and then the Aaron coming out finally allowed us to have that bump in our.
hysterical bonding.
There it is. We had a moment where that happened,
You
and
had sex and stuff?
I'll tell you, this is my kids cannot watch this, but this is the
Don't worry,
moment.
even my kids don't watch, can't watch any of my stuff.
So I kept things together for, God, it felt like years, but it was really only like maybe 6 weeks. Things fell apart right around Erin's birthday. Erin told me that she really, really, well, first she told me she didn't have to look like a woman. And then it just kept being like one more thing, one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. And then the thing that really made me just shut down completely was Erin wanted for her birthday to be penetrated. So we bought the penetration things. And for her birthday, I was going to be a really good Roman Catholic wife, and I was going to give my husband a really great wienering. So I put the stuff on, or I get the package open. Like I'm still like sometimes I'm still physically there. I'm like trying to put the stuff on, and I'm just like a puddle on the
Just
floor, and I'm
just just to
sobbing.
elaborate, this was never anything that was part of your sexual fantasies or identity at all.
No.
You were 1000% trying to be a good wife
Yes, my
and make it
husband
work.
needed this, and I was like,
Yeah.
God damn it, I'm gonna do it. This is what Aaron needs to be happy, and this is what I need to get fucked. So we're gonna try it out. So we get the
Right.
stuff, and I'm trying to open it, and I'm a puddle sobbing on the floor. And I'm like, I can't do this. And Aaron goes, It's okay, you don't have to. And then I look at Aaron and I'm like, no, yeah, like, I mean, I can't do this. I can't do this. That was too much. Erin had given me over the course of that couple of 2 months the reins basically for her new gender orientation and had put me in charge of it. And I was like, that's the most codependent thing I've ever fucking heard of in my life. And for a while, like this is really codependent too. I was making a joke for those 2 months where I was like, I'm a lesbian now. Not a fucking les. I am so
Yeah.
disgustingly heterosexual that it's a problem.
Okay, so you were basically in like full on like dissociative hysterical bonding panic. You were like, whatever you need me to do, I could be, I can do this. And then it just all stopped and you realized you couldn't.
I couldn't anymore. So we separated. I bought a church. One of those commercial buildings was a church. I moved into that and we got divorced like basically 6 months after that. And then until we were divorced, Aaron pretended to be a man and showed up to court like a man so that there weren't any red flags, and then changed her name to ERIN from AARON, didn't tell me, didn't include me. There was no, so my understanding based on what one of the
Yeah.
school psychologists told me, and I want you to chime in on this too because I'm fucking mad about it still. When you transition and you are married and you've got kids, the standard of care is usually family therapy first, or there needs to be some family therapy before psychologists start signing off on sex changes. None of that happened for us.
Yeah, I would imagine it didn't because, I mean, he's an adult. He was an adult, and then I guess I guess he just said what he thought. And what did he say? That this was how he had felt for how long?
His whole life.
And he didn't tell you. That's the
No,
craziest part of
let
this
me quit
whole
my job.
thing.
Yes, let me quit my job,
Yeah.
which looking back on it, I'm going to say what it really was a fucking setup because what Erin never wanted to do was not be married. Erin wanted me to
Yeah.
support her. She looked at me in the driveway one day and was like, You abandoned me. And I was like,
Yeah. That's
Okay,
something.
go fuck
So you
yourself.
feel like this was like almost like not a long con, but like not a long con, you know?
Well, okay, maybe it wasn't, but I had just quit my job and was financially dependent on
Plus
Erin,
the
and then
whole
she comes
sexless
out.
marriage really is to have sexless marriage because you have no sex drive. But to have a sexless marriage and meanwhile you're ostensibly telling your private therapist these things that you think, I mean, listen, I understand that it's hard to come out like that, especially a conservative environment, but you're a person too, so this is like massive betrayal trauma, same thing. It's like he was cheating with his own like ideas, like
Yeah.
that like he was like there was this lying going on consistently. And this leads to people don't understand, but like tremendous, you understand, but people listening, it's PTSD. When your partner has lied to you for that long, allowed you to consistently say things like, you're being weird. What's going on? Why do we never have sex? Like for years and years. And then it comes out something like this. It is really destabilizing. It makes you feel like you don't understand anything about the world. It is true PTSD.
Yes. And the only thing that got me through it was that the work trauma that I had experienced was bad enough that I needed to get EMDR. So I found a good EMDR therapist. And years prior to that, so for like 2 good years, I'd been working with Shirley before any of the fallout happened. So I had a really good, stable psychotherapeutic relationship that I could really lean into. Um, and work through the rest of the shit that Aaron had sort of piled onto me. So, and it's interesting that you say that it was a lot like feeling like Aaron had been cheating on me.
Yeah.
Um, and at the time, I was so starved for sex and so dissociated that I had started seeing men while we were separated, but not yet divorced. I never heard the end of that. Like Aaron, still to this day, I think felt insanely traumatized, was always very jealous for no good reason. I was a very loyal wife. Never gave any concern for like my eyes drifting one way or another. I had no interest in anything but like being a good wife, being a good professor, being a good mom. That was my identity. I was doing it. And then my world falls apart and I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm gonna go have sex finally. And Erin loses her
Yeah.
fucking mind over it. And I'm like, dude,
I'm like, I guess you
my
can,
fucking
like,
life.
it's just so the whole situation is crazy. And it's like, it really shows like how dysfunctional I, and there's just so many layers, like Russian nesting dolls. I mean, yes, culturally it was going to be really hard for Aaron. How did his parents react to this, by the way?
We came out to Aaron's parents and brother and sister-in-law, and maybe the other brother on a Zoom call because it was COVID. And Aaron needed me there as support. And this was where I was still in full on like dissociative mode and like pretending to be this like cool, supportive wife who was like, oh, look at this fun little life transition that we're going to make together that I'm so like happy to be supportive of. There was like a lot of silence, but there weren't very many questions. And
I
it kind of
wonder what he did as a little boy, right? I mean, do you think that he was always playing and always dressing up and stuff?
never. It was
Never.
there. So they had 3 boys, and the oldest boy has like, from what I can tell, like normal gender identity, normal sexuality. The youngest is gay, and Aaron is trans. But so Aaron, after we got divorced, the parents, I don't know. To this day, the best I can describe it, and the best the kids, and I know you know this is true in clinical situations. Like when people are dismissive avoidant, it's difficult to describe because there's a lot of nothing. It's silence, it's awkward
Yeah.
moments, it's like holding your tongue. It's very Eastern European. Like we're not going to cause a problem, but we're not going to address it either. So I think Erin told me that she would have wanted to be named Catherine and be called Kate. She chose to be called Erin, but Erin. And I think it was just because otherwise her parents would have had a really difficult time calling her a new name. Really. So I'm just like, you fucking coward. You ruined everybody's life and you couldn't be brave enough to be the actual woman that you wanted to be. Like, screw you. So there's that. So I don't know. I have a hard time describing it. My TikTok's full of people like, what did they say? And I'm like, I don't really know. When the kids are like, they just pretend like everything's normal. They have a aunt that avoids Aaron at all costs, like takes extra shifts when Aaron comes to visit for work so that she doesn't have to be part of it. But if she's there like on Christmas or Thanksgiving, she's like as far away from Aaron as possible. They started calling Aaron Auntie Aaron. Um, I just have a strong suspicion that that's like not
I
something
think
she's
that
supportive of.
like, I think that. given the history of the dismissive avoidance and then your preoccupied attachment, I think that you were so used to fixing every problem that you just thought that you could fix this one somehow if you tried hard enough. And and it seemed like Aaron thought so too, because that was the dynamic, is like Brandi
Hmm.
will fix it. And that was super codependent, and you know that now. But like you tried, but I guess everybody has their limits, and you just could not go into an identity that wasn't yours, you know? And it was just a bridge too far.
Yeah. And I'm so thankful that like whatever parts of me were left were able to go, this is too much. Go. Get out. Like it'll be better on the other side. There was a very fated moment when I had just moved to Alma, which is a very small rural town that is was very different from where we went to grad school and even where I grew up really. Where I went out to the grocery store and I came back and I looked at Aaron and I said, you know what I'm really thankful for is that I don't have to find a life partner in this county.
I
And
mean,
that would have
yeah.
been 2012.
Okay, so now we are at the place where you all this stuff was uncovered and you wanted to EMDR for something else. How did you start to trust men again?
I'm an idiot. I don't know. I just,
You well,
I don't think I should have.
you should have, because now you're happily remarried, right?
I do. I trust man. Do I trust? I guess I just stopped. I also had a very bad experience. Okay, so I started seeing people and just because I was lonely and I had no friends, no good friends. I had like gym buddies and I thought that they were really, really good friends, but I was very incorrect about that. I lost all of my professor friends because they were all Team Aaron somehow. And I was like, the one person who tried to keep my family together gets um
It's not like
Aaron told
there's just
everybody that we broke up because I was cheating on her. That's what Erin
because,
told her family. That's what
oh,
Erin
I
told our friend.
see. I
So
see.
for 2 years, I don't want those people in my life. Like and at the time when they were like, they kind of just stopped talking to me. I was like, that's fine, whatever. I didn't really like feel strongly about them anyway. The distancer pursuer is prevalent in a lot of different parts of my life, friendships too. So I'll tend to put way too much into a friendship and get like 10% back out of it. So that's been my biggest life lesson on that one. So like I'm living by myself, I'm seeing people. Um, like I don't think I did trust them. I kept my emotional distance. Um, there was I started to learn really quickly about how long it takes for masks to come off. There were some like pretty hard and fast rules that I came up with kind of quickly about like what men to date, what men not to date. And I just at some point this happened right before I met my husband and had kind of happened. I had a relationship that had been on and off for like 2 years that was horribly toxic, like it was abusive, it was manipulative, and I just couldn't get myself out of it because he had the kind of job where he would go away for 2 weeks and he'd come back for 2 weeks. So that was the kind of off and on component of it. And I would kind of recover. So in the process of all of this, I have become very emotionally resilient. But at the same time, my self-worth did not rise to the level of my emotion regulation. So I'm like very good at taking shit, but very bad at knowing that I don't need to be taking the shit. So
Yeah.
getting the self-worth to come back up here has been the longest struggle for me. And I would say that that kind of started to come together at the end of that really bad relationship where I was like, I would rather be by myself or just have people like I'm just casually dating for company. I was
So
there.
you were in that self-protective casual dating phase that a lot of people do after betrayal trauma, where you're like, listen, maybe I'll just take what I can get from romantic partners and it'll
Yeah.
be a very almost transactional friendly situation, but nothing very deeply intimate or vulnerable.
Yeah. And with me, it was easy to figure out the ones that you needed to stop talking to because they would want to like enmesh kind of quickly. So you just get rid of them. But that led to a lot of like, even in my TikTok, there's a lot of like funny stories where men are crashing out over me being like, no, this isn't going to work for me. So like when I met Dennis, I had already decided like I'm probably not gonna get remarried. And that's okay. I'm just gonna like whatever. And I met him and I was just like, oh my God. And I'd never been in love before. And that was wild. Like I'd exchanged I love yous with people,
Right.
but it wasn't love. Like, and this is the craziest thing for me to admit out loud. Like I study the scientific like how do you measure love in parent-children relationships? I know so much about that, like 99th percentile. Had I ever experienced love as a grown-up? No. And they feel so similar.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah, I think that the interesting part of this story, from my perspective, like, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff about the story, but you're so smart, and like he was doing stuff that was red flags, right? I mean, come on,
Yeah. Yeah, like if you were my friend, you'd be like, what the fuck?
red flag territory. And I was your friend, but nobody told me anything. I mean, well, next
Well,
I
you're
saw
not going
you.
to embarrass yourself online about
No,
that
I
stuff.
know.
You know
I
what I
just
mean?
want to say, had anybody said to me, like, but I guess it's just so the sex stuff, and this is why I work with men with it. So, I mean, like women obviously too, but like it's like 80% men that are the one in this that are the higher libido partner. But like it's really it's really destabilizing to your core sense of self and your attractiveness and your self-worth and all these things. Also, as you're admitting, people don't really get into it unless they don't haven't felt that unconditional love as a kid and stuff, you know? People do not, and I tell people this, it's unpopular, on the internet, but attachment style, like a securely attached woman would not have remained in this. And I say this as somebody who's divorced myself, right? So it's not like I
Mhm.
didn't make like bad decisions too on things that were like not similar in your way, but similar in some of the other ways, to what you're describing. And you don't get into that if you don't feel like self-worth issues from childhood, about whether it's like, can I really be truly loved in some kind of a normative situation? Or does somebody like me with my deficits need to kind of take what they could get and make the best and like, fix up a relationship with string and ticky tacky and like, try to make it look like a relationship when it isn't, and when it's
Mhm.
something that a secure person would have broken up with the person after a year.
Right. That's exactly what the problem was. So the EMDR was super helpful in getting through the very traumatizing events. And recently, I would also recommend this like offshoot of EMDR. My therapist was like, I just got this new training. It's called flash therapy. And I'm initially kind of resistant in therapy. And we've known each other for like 6 years at this point. So she pushes me a little bit, kind of like you do. She pushes me a little bit and it's like, just shut up and try it, basically, but like therapeutically. I fucking loved it. So you don't even have to have a strong therapeutic relationship to be able to try flash therapy, and you don't have to focus on the bad thing. So the bad thing kind of happens in the background like it's on television or something, and you focus on, but this is
Mhm.
the hard part. You have to have something positive that you can really kind of gush about happening at the same time. So if you're in the throes of anxiety or depression, it's
What is
probably
this
not
thing called?
flash therapy, I think.
Flash therapy.
Um,
That's cool.
Super quick, very helpful. There was something that came up and she was like, "Well, where did it really come from?" And I was like, "I'm seeing my dad." So she was like, "Put him over there." And we just kind of went, "You do this while you're talking about the fun positive thing." So I just booked my first family vacation. I was able to finally afford one after being nearly homeless, basically jobless, and worked my way up to, like I make 3 times more than I used to as a professor. So like I really did come out of this better. And I was finally
Hmm.
able to, I paid off a lot of debt and I booked a
But you're
vacation.
rocking and rolling in the real estate stuff.
I got three closings this week, which is like I
Well,
used
because
to,
you're pretty, you're funny, you know. I mean, I'm sure
yeah,
you're also good at real estate. I mean, I don't mean to be
that
dismissive.
keeps them coming back around for sure, the competency. But yeah,
Didn't
it's
you
weird.
get out your didn't you put yourself on a billboard or something?
I did. They're not that much money. And if your ex-husband and your mortal enemies have the opportunity to see your face
You said
several
something
times,
so funny on it. What was it? It was like it
think
was
of
like if
me.
yeah, yeah, like if you like it was like if you hate me or I don't know, like what did you write about
Like,
it
good
on
luck
social?
hating me when you have to see my face or something like
Yeah,
that.
something
And
like
the
that. It was
billboard
just
is
so funny.
literally, it's a great marketing line, right? Like I came up with it. It says, you can come in. It says, think of me. But the real reason it says think of me is because it's like, fuck you guys, you have to think about me every time you see my face. And the way that the kids described it, so Aaron has to drive past this with the kids in the car. I was like, hey, did you guys see my billboard? And they were like, yeah. And I don't know. I was like, well, what did your dad do? And they were like, well, we were just quiet. It was
God.
like a funeral had happened. And there's another one as you're leaving town to get on the freeway, you have to see my face again. Because I literally billboards do not cost that much money. And then when you're petty, like I am,
Yeah.
like, fuck you, you're gonna see my face everywhere. I
How
have
did the
magnets
children
now.
respond to all this stuff? Did the whole
Codependency. I see them do the codependent thing where like they just let Aaron do the Aaron show and they put as much of themselves away as possible. My son more than my daughter. My daughter is she's neurodivergent. I think she's probably on the autism spectrum scale. So she's more like fairness, justice oriented. So she's less likely to play these games and they just like butt heads. But justifiably so. Aaron did an enormous empathic rupture with Magda a year ago and took her to therapy to try to convince the therapist to like fix the bond. But Aaron, like, and I think Aaron also has undiagnosed autism. So, but it was a disaster. Like Magda loved the therapist, obviously, and things were going really well with her and the therapist, but Erin wasn't changing her behavior and never took accountability for the thing that she did that was so bad that I had to call CPS twice. And CPS, like, nothing physically happened to Magda, but she was traumatized enough that she's going to need EMDR like she will need trauma therapy to get through this as a grown up. Like when she's capable of having it, she will need it.
This was
And
the
Erin,
thing with the overeducating about the genital stuff that I saw on your
yeah,
TikTok.
yeah. And it was more than like there was some in-person stuff that happened too. And CPS, as you know, is not going to do anything when the kids are fed, clothed,
Yeah.
warm, haven't been touched, basically. So they were like,
But it
they
is
were like, Erin,
destabilizing for them too. So I feel like that's kind of the betrayal from your perspective is if so at this point, what will
Erin
these
told the kids that we broke up because I was cheating on her. Like, who the fuck does that?
well, but the kids don't they understand also there would be another huge reason called that you know, the transition.
They
Don't
do. And Magda was the first one to be like, well, that's bullshit. And Frankie was like, he wanted more information. And I was like, God, this is really fucking uncomfortable. But I guess if you're gonna try to throw me under the bus, I'll gently try to like defend myself. But that's fucked up. And then when I got married, Aaron told the kids, you people get married quickly because the girl got pregnant. Like told my kids that.
What? That's so bizarre.
So I had somebody that I was married to that I thought was a good parent, but I think the actual situation was that I was in charge of that too. Like I was always the soft place to land. I was the secure base. Aaron was like the one that did stuff, the
But
instrumental
what I
parent.
wanted to see is how many years is finally admitted that Erin knew that Erin was a woman.
Well, Aaron said she knew when she was 8 and
See,
definitely knew at 13.
that's the thing. That's why I feel like this is like one of the crazier betrayal trauma things that I've heard,
Well, and that's
especially
why
in
I'm
this
like,
day
that
and
was a
age where
setup.
people, well, when people are allowed to come out, you know, and I understand it's
Mhm.
different everywhere. And I feel bad. And I would feel less bad if Aaron was trying to maybe like work on the sex life during that time, or like had like some maybe religious reason and thought that it just couldn't happen. And so then they were going to be the best husband that they could be. But this isn't. It's more like what I see when people are having like it. You know what it is? Almost like it's like when people, and I've heard this from multiple clients, had like a parent who was always in love with someone else, like their first love. And so they never were fully present in the marriage to the person's other spouse. And then, and I heard this from multiple people, either they get divorced or the person, the other parent dies, and that person returns, like to the high school sweetheart or something. And that was the one true love. It's like there was this one core identity that your ex felt, and it was like he couldn't be in love with you because he couldn't be in love in, you know what, like it just was
Yeah.
all kind of fake and smoke and mirrors. And I'm sure that Erin is has a lot of issues from upbringing and childhood, just like everybody does. And what happened to you is also really cataclysmic and just completely changes your perspective. And it seems like EMDR was useful too. It seems like falling in love again was useful too and reparative.
Internal family systems was the thing that fixed the self-worth. And I can't say enough about that. So there was a moment in therapy with my therapist, Shirley, where she was like, okay, you're reading this book, you did it. I also read the Four Agreements as a good
Oh,
starting point.
I have people who like that. A lot of my therapists say that as their favorite book. I've
Yeah.
never.
And then there was this book. I didn't read the one by the Vander whatever about the trauma in the body one, because I don't know, that guy just seems skeezy to me. But there was one that Waking the Tiger. That was revolutionary to me. So there was this moment where I was driving past a place that always triggered me. And I had just been listening to that part of the book where he was talking about like animals shake to like do a nervous system reset. And I had been repressing those shakes. And I don't know why exactly. I'm not going to overanalyze it because it's like a biological thing that's going on. But I was like, I had felt like a shake and I was like, I'm going to let these out. I shivered down the road for 3 minutes off and on. And up until that point, I had always avoided going by this house that triggered me. And after that point that I shook that out of my body, I've never been triggered by it ever again. And that was a watershed moment for me. Every time I was like, I'm being triggered, I started to look for the shiver and I started to shake it out. So the therapeutic process, like, kind of provided the foundation for it without having to do the EMDR or the tapping. So now I can kind of shake that shit out of my body and move on without having to like do lots of deep, hard processing.
And your exercise probably helped you when I think about it, right? You're like super
It does.
committed to that. Your
Yes.
CrossFit.
And that is another thing that I would say is like when you are finding yourself like trying to figure out who you are again, like I just set my mind on like, well, like I'm just going to be the best person that I possibly can. So I leaned into work. I leaned into like self-help. I leaned into um like being fitter. And if anything, I mean it's going to sound tongue in cheek, but like get hotter. Why not?
Get
I
hotter,
have a
get
glow up.
richer.
Both. You can have both. And the way that I get
You
hotter is
are like the
crazy.
husband in a lot of these things because that's what after divorce, that's what like a lot of guys do too. It's like the go to the gym, get make more money. I mean, I think a lot of us women make more money after divorce too. I mean, I did, you
You
did,
have to.
you have to because you half your stuff is gone, So I mean, and
Mhm.
you don't want to be asking for money and if you don't have to ever.
Yeah. So yeah, and then like the internal family system stuff was also helpful with self-worth, where I was able to unconditionally love myself without trying to find it in some other person. And once you love yourself unconditionally, you kind of can't be fucked with anymore. It felt like a real true superpower
Yeah.
at that point where somebody would say something offhand and I would be like, block, delete, done, bye, no
Yeah.
more. We've had enough.
Yeah, exactly. I try to say this to my girls and especially girls. I mean, my son too, but the girls, you identify more like the one of them looks exactly like me. Both of them kind of do. And I was like, if someone says they're not into you, or they imply that they're not into you, or they don't prioritize you. And this is what I say to them, which you're going to find very funny given everything we're talking about. I say it's as though they're saying they're gay. They're not into you. They can't. They so if somebody said they didn't like girls, then that's, because they both have gay friends, so that's just not somebody you could date. It's just not somebody you could be
Yeah.
into. So if somebody says somehow they're not into you, they're not sure about you, says some negative, undermining things about you, that like about your looks or your smartness or anything, it's like they're saying they're gay. Like you can't
You can't take
really,
it personally at that point
yeah,
if
you
you
can't take it
conceptualize it like that.
personally. You obviously can't be with them. It should be as obvious that you can't be with them as if they said that they were not
Hmm.
heterosexual?
Yeah.
So, I mean, kind of funny based on what we're saying here, but I wish somebody would have said it to me. Instead, I was in the age where it's like, well, then maybe, you should just turn into what they want, like, because
Well,
obviously,
have you
right?
ever heard me say jokingly? I'm sure you've heard it before too. It's like people don't get doctorates in psychology because their parents loved them enough.
Right.
So of course our parents weren't telling us
Yeah.
helpful things like, "Oh, fuck that guy. He must be gay."
Yeah, it wasn't like fuck that guy. It was more like, well, I mean, we all do have to get married sometimes, so maybe you can take some
That
of that
or like my
feedback.
mom loves making it seem to this day loves making it seem like I'm the problem and I'm like I can't get more
That
degrees.
you
I
with the
can't get
problem with
more.
that he's trans? How could you be the
She
problem?
was still, I lost some family members and didn't talk to my mom for a while after because I was at a baseball game and my mom spent 2 hours being best friends with my transitioning husband. And I was like,
Yeah.
getting better and I was like, fuck you guys. I called her and I was like, what is going on with you? Like, why would you do that? And she didn't have a very good explanation. I just kind of stepped away from it. My another family member was being secret best friends with Aaron still, and I was like, this is
To
ridiculous.
be
Like,
clear, this is like the most like situation. You were writing letter to the editor about how they shouldn't have somebody come onto campus that was anti-trans. You were trying to peg that, right? You were trying to be like, the betrayal is not a sexuality thing, it's a lying thing. It's a dismissive, avoidant, what like I'm gonna be talking to my therapist, make sure she can't hear me talk about it. I assume from everything that I've heard that, you know, there was a lot of work that he was doing before you knew anything, and a lot of other stuff. And since 8 or 13 is not something that you should then get married to a woman and have stop having sex with them and not tell them. And I am again sure that there are all sorts of things going on under the surface there, but it is tantamount to the same thing of a cheating. It is like the same, and that's why you responded how you did. You didn't respond how you did because, oh my God, my husband got a bolt out of the blue, and it wasn't out of the blue. And that's the thing where you're like, am I not even important enough to you? Do you not even respect me enough that you would tell me that this was in the air, that the hoofbeats were in the distance?
hmm I do want to mention you were talking about people who like they can't fall in love with their spouse because they're in love with somebody else. I am 100% certain that that was true with Aaron, but the person that Aaron is in love with is his mom. There
Really?
was never room in that marriage for me because Aaron's one true love was Aaron's mother and it was is to this day. So we separated and we got married and I was like one of our major conflicts, and I'm sure you see this a lot in therapy, is that Aaron never put me first. Aaron always put Marie and her needs and what she wanted. That was the primary thing. And I was like,
Mhm.
if this marriage is going to work, and I do have to give Aaron some credit because while we were married, Aaron let me take more control over that. But what it ended up doing was we just didn't hang out with Aaron's parents anymore. So while we were together, I was like, your parents are abusive. Your parents treat me like shit. I don't want anything to do with it. And you're not leaving me here abandoned for holiday weekends with the kids while you go see your family. Like I didn't get married to hang out by myself.
Yeah.
So Aaron capitulated and did that. But the second we separated, Aaron kidnapped my kids to go live at her house for a week so I could move out of my house into a barely habitable house the church that I owned that was going to be turned into like a living situation for us for a while. And like is hyper enmeshed in a dismissive avoidant way with hanging out with mom at all costs. And it's flabbergasted
Well,
me.
that's a whole other thing when people are very enmeshed with family of origin, so they just cannot individuate. And if you were never kind of like a real person in this marriage, or never like he didn't like really situate you as a primary partner, then that really explains why he was able to keep a secret of this magnitude, because it
Yeah.
was kind of like keeping it from a coworker or something. It was not, wasn't like a really intimate bond. And since you
Yeah.
didn't have the stable child, the functional, loving childhood, you didn't recognize what wasn't there.
I
I,
know.
I had one of my therapists that works at Best Life on, and she's a psychoanalytic person. And she said that in psychoanalytic theory, they talk about the couples world, and like that couples cannot repair in therapy unless they started out having this little couples world, like with the
Mm,
universe of just the two and all that stuff. And I thought that was very interesting and insightful, because if you don't have the only way that you can like create that is with like honesty and authenticity, and two people who are comfortable being vulnerable and intimate with each other. And like if you don't start out like that, like you almost never feel married, and that's like you didn't, like a lot of us who got divorced never really exactly felt married, and then maybe in the
yeah.
second marriage you seems like you do, I do, but like
Yeah.
it's hard to really feel married unless you have that close authentic connection that for healthy people is like childhood. It's like going back to that happy
Yeah.
childhood.
And it feels very much like the way I imagine it felt. I never experienced it, but I've seen it. I've seen babies melting into their parents, into their moms, that like that toddler snuggle. And that's my part of parenting that I miss so much, like being able to smell your kids and they're sleeping on your chest. And like the early stage, it's a honeymoon period for the first
Yeah.
2 years. I
Yeah.
never had that with Aaron. And I thought, mistakenly, because of the undergrad psych work that I was doing, that like other things were more important than this feeling
Um,
of love. And
uh-huh.
when I met Dennis, it was like we were just the only two people in the whole world that existed were us. And it was at a time where like real estate was slow. It was like right before Christmas, and my kids inevitably were away because of like parenting schedules. So we had like a prolonged amount of time that we could just like hang out together. And it's still a moment that we look back to with like yearning. And I never had anything like that, where there's no moment in, and even when I was married, there was no moment in my marriage that I would ever wanted to go back to or look
Yeah.
fondly on, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But like I'll tell you briefly too. So after Erin and I separated, when we were together, Erin was adamant she didn't have to change her name. She wasn't going to change her name. She was always going to be dad. She was never going to have any surgeries. And then under the 2 year mark from us being separated, Aaron did all of those things without telling me, without including me as a person to like help the kids get through this
So now she
transition.
goes as another mom?
She's been putting herself down as, and this is one of my major problems with Erin, is that without asking the family in any way, shape, or form, has started to put herself down as the mom on forms and introducing herself as the
Oh,
mom in public.
but that,
And
but
I
what
am not.
about you?
No, when nobody has ever, yeah. Like you said, I was never a person in this marriage, in
Yeah.
this family. I really, in the end, look back on it sadly thinking like I allowed myself to be treated like I was an incubator, a womb. You know, but I had blonde hair, I had blue eyes, I was athletic, I was
Well, you
pretty.
said we were the same skin color. It's like you were a Xerox machine.
People thought I was the kid that came between Aaron and his youngest brother. I was the fourth daughter. When we were getting married,
Kid
people were like,
is
"Oh, you brought your
eerie.
brother?" And somebody else that had known their family forever was like, I didn't know you had a daughter.
Wow. And then, but yet when you tried to call her mom, it didn't
It didn't
work.
work. Yeah, so there was no reason that they didn't have any, like they, if they'd have paused for a second, they would have went, oh, hey, Brandy, how are you? What do you need? What's up? But no, on that landline that day, they were like, who the fuck is this? And I was like, okay, we're done.
Well, all right. I mean, this has been my longest episodes because this was so fascinating, all your stuff. I do have to go for a client. Thank you so much. I want everybody to see I mean, go to Brandy's TikTok. I mean, the fact that you have a sense of humor about all this stuff alone really is amazing. And it really shows that you can get through betrayal trauma, try to be better, try to really understand your contribution. That's another thing that I really like when I was following your story on with bated breath on TikTok, like all your fans, was you really own that you have attachment issues from childhood and that they perfectly situated you to get involved and to be in this dysfunctional relationship with somebody who was not really truthful to you, to put it mildly, for the whole thing, and you've moved through it. And a lot of people are like going through this stuff right now. That's when they find my podcast and stuff, is when they find like cheating or like, the person says that they never, liked sex with them, or they never liked them, or they never loved them. And I mean, there is another, you keep going and you can come out and there's a light at the end of the tunnel with growth and work and all of it that you've done.
Mm-hmm. There is.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I want to have you on some other time. Maybe I'll get your new husband on with you. Is he over there?
He's ignoring. He can hear in the background. We'll see.
Get him in right now. I don't want to put him on the spot. All right. Well, I will. Everybody, go to all of Brandy's stuff, and thank you so much, Brandy. And see you later.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.